It's so funny. I read when I was researching my book on happiness, I read a number of secular studies, and at times I literally laughed out loud because of what these studies find. People who help other people are happier people. In other words, they literally will say sometimes like, well, even if you don't really care about people and love people, if you just want to be happier, go help people. And it's like, well, what did Jesus say? Love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. And, look at Isaiah 58:10. If you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted. Now, before you read on, what would you think it would then say? God will reward you for your great sacrifice. You made yourself miserable, but you helped other people, and God will reward you for this. That's not what it says. That's just not what it says. If you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then your light will rise in darkness. Your gloom will become like midday. Your depression will lift as you help others because you're not thinking of yourself. You forget about yourself when you pour yourself into others and when you lose yourself in God.
You remember that time during the Katrina disaster, and I've mentioned this before. When it happened, we're all watching the TV, and Theta just sees that TV. She says, Alan, I'm supposed to be there. I am supposed to be there. Well, it turned out, the body wanted to respond, and Jonathan sent Theta and another lady, and she spent a week working 14 to 16-hour days. She came back. She says, Alan, it was the happiest week of my life. And I go, what are you talking about? She says, I had no thought of myself.
Think of the physicians, and some, we've had this in our congregation, and others, who take vacation time every year, and they can't wait to get back to that poor country where they are saving lives and helping people and removing tumors from children and working those 18-hour days and literally come back from their vacations exhausted, and then they can't wait to go back next year. What does that tell you? Give thanks in all circumstances. This is the gratitude part, and this will be a great way for us to wind it up. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Lord my God, I will give thanks to you forever. Gratitude and happiness, two sides of the same coin. I will thank you in the great congregation. In the mighty throng, I will praise you. We have all received grace after grace. Grace on top of grace is a literal translation of that, from his fullness. G.K. Chesterton, one of the happiest Christians as well as most thoughtful that I've ever read, I would maintain that thanks are the highest form of thought, and that gratitude is happiness doubled by wonder. Grateful people are happy people. Here's what Matthew Henry said after being robbed. No kidding. And he was known as a very happy man. You can see why. He was robbed. He said, let me be thankful first because I was never robbed before. Second, although they took my money, they did not take my life. Third, because although they took my all, it was not much. And fourth, because it was I who was robbed, not I who robbed.
And this is real life.
Now, you could say, well, that's putting a good spin on it. Well, yeah, but is anything he said false? Seek to cultivate a buoyant, joyous sense of the crowded kindnesses of God in your daily life. Happy Christ followers notice God's presence around every corner. Lewis said, we may ignore, but we can nowhere evade the presence of God. The world is crowded with him. He walks everywhere incognito. Don't you love that? I'll just skip to this final quote because we're out of time here. The person who has chosen to make gratitude his or her mindset and lifestyle can view anything through the eyes of thankfulness. The whole world looks different when we do. And our friend, our mutual friend, Nancy Lee, keeps adding names. And so she got married
Took her
for the
57
first
years to get
time
the other-
at age 57 in November. So to Bob Wolgamuth, who I also know, another great guy. But, you know, God surprises us. She had joy as a single person. She's having joy as a married person. Gratitude. That gratitude, find another book that came out the same year as Nancy Lee's book is, along with it, I think, the finest book on thankfulness and gratitude I've ever read, and that's Ann Voskamp's 1,000 Gifts. Highly recommend that you read both of these books, and you will find yourself in becoming more grateful, becoming far happier.